Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the awesome sauce that is the late night esports show. I am the beautiful challenger mode Daniel. I'm joined by three rather terrific fellows this evening as well. We've got the ginger-haired soulless one himself, Paul Volden, my regular boy. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Fine, thank you. That's awfully polite for usual. But,
Okay, I'm fine, douchebag. I hope I never will see
yeah,
you
that's where
again.
it's at. Douchebag, it's all good. For those of Well, I was going to say, if anyone thinks that Volden's looking a little bit like hanging or rough on camera today, he's just driven 965,000 miles back from Stockholm to where. Remind us where it is that you live. You're next door to Santa Claus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is like I don't know, 200 meters up the hill here, and we got Santa Claus. So
Yeah. Now, Volden's tuning in from the basically the North Pole. It's inside the Arctic Circle. That's how freaking north he lives. But we're also joined today by two special guests. First things first, we've got Deefa. Deefa, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing fine. I thought I was gonna be asleep at this point, but I'm starting to wake up again now after work, so I'm good. I'm good to be here.
This is a good way to be, you know. We're gonna have to put this as a new advertisement as well for the show, Volden. It's gonna be late night esports, waking you up just when you're starting to sleep. It's a tagline.
yeah.
We'll have to see how it goes. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much for joining this evening. We're also joined by Mal from Gangstars. How's it going, Mal?
I'm good, man. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me and stuffs. But yeah, let's talk about some cool things and esports.
Esports,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, esports.
Indeed, much the same as every week. We've got three topics of conversation that we're going to be talking about this week. Some game related, but to be honest with you, we've kind of got this loose mentality towards several of the topics, and we're just interested to find out different people's perspectives. And the first one that we really want to pick up on is actually the PGL major that went on this weekend. CSGO's 11th major, this time ran in Poland by PGL, their first. And it was a weekend of firsts. We saw Gambit Gaming winning out the tournament. The guys from the CIS states, so one of the first CSGO major won by a CIS team. And in itself, an incredible achievement for them, especially for their captain Zeus, who won his first CSGO major, obviously 9-10 years ago when he first won his first majors in 1.6. But we could sit and talk about the teams and all of that. But actually, the real topic that I want to talk about with you guys isn't the major itself or even the surprise victory of Gambit. It's actually to do with favorites for tournaments. And when you've got a tournament that's so incredibly open that surprise people come through and pick up the victory. Because the final was played between Immortals and Gambit Gaming. And I think going into the event, there can't have been many people that would have predicted them to be in, well, maybe not even in the semi-finals, let alone the finals itself. Now, Deefa, Mal, I know you guys aren't tip-top CSGO boys, so we'll go on the topic of the conversation. But let me start off with Volden, because I know he is. Volden, what's your take on these surprise finalists and also the importance of a really balanced game?
I wanted to Cloud9 to be in the final, so you know me wants surprises. But I think it's not boring to see the same teams all over again, like the top-notch teams to compete. But it's so exciting when actually new teams that is not they're good, but they're not the best, and they just blossom up and shows who the boss from time to time, like Virtus Pro is doing sometimes.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, Mal, you're known for Vainglory in the main.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a couple of top teams within the realms of Vainglory, noticeably, the Cloud9 team that plays so fantastically in London very recently, and the likes of TSM and a few others.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is to have a really mixed sort of level of competition? Do you think having teams that are all performing on an even level and it could be anyone's game is important to esports? Or do you actually think having somebody that is the guy with the target on their back is an important part to it?
To not to be too diplomatic, but actually, I kind of both. I think when it comes to competition, especially from an esports perspective, where obviously the predominant person that we're trying to entertain and here is the viewer, both elements are kind of key to that entertainment value. Having someone that is the clear favorite and that underdog story, a team coming through that you didn't expect to see there suddenly actually doing well, that rallies a lot of people that were pretty impartial to start with, that suddenly want to back a team, and at the same time, from entertainment perspective, it is good to see those teams rally, face off against each other, because no one wants to see someone get steamrolled. Though I suppose that is entertaining to some people, but from a competitive perspective, it's not that enjoyable just to see a 2-minute game or 5-minute game, depending on the game you're playing, just with someone walking in and going, yeah, this was practice. It doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel like, if you're watching that and you're watching it to see like the best teams, and you see that happen, you feel like you've been cheated a little bit.
Yeah. One of the interesting stories that came out of this major is the fact that, God, I'm trying to think. It wasn't the EL major, so it was the one before that, which would have been New York. New York, Gambit Gaming met Fnatic in I think it was the quarterfinals, and one of the Fnatic players basically said that he thought that the Gambit team that they played in the quarterfinals was such a bad game that it shouldn't have been a quarterfinal. They felt that the gulf in difference between the two teams was so great that Gambit had basically robbed somebody of a place to be in the quarterfinals. And I think the thing that I love about the story this time around is that Gambit beat Fnatic in the quarterfinals on the way to winning.
Gotta love that, Carlos.
So come on, fuck you in many respects.
I'm kind of curious, who said that in Fnatic?
I believe it was either JW or Flusher.
Yeah.
It was one of those two, and I wouldn't want to tar one of them with that particular line, but it was one of those two. But yeah, I mean, that must have been a great feeling. I mean, Tifa, let's get your sort of perspective on this. I know you're very interested in lots of different games, but more recently into your fighting games on the new Nintendo platform.
I think it's really interesting, because now when we have these teams that are coming from countries that aren't perhaps the ones known for Counter-Strike, usually before it was these three countries like Sweden or America that you would always see. Yeah.
Never the UK noticed.
But more often than not, lately there's been a bit of countries popping up, even Mongols getting some stream time in some tournaments, and Australian teams coming in as well. And I think it's kind of a testament that the infrastructure in esports, and especially Counter-Strike, is growing and kind of becoming very stable, where teams living in the CIS area can become the top teams in the world, which is really cool. But you were also saying something about having a team being dominant in a lot of the time. I think there's a value in that too, whereas you can kind of build not a cult, but you can a following for that team, which can give a lot to the esports community. If you look at how people or players were dominating in StarCraft, where they had 2-year runs where they were winning every tournament, or even NIP winning, I think, the beginning of CS:GO, where they were winning
89 wins on the trot, boys. Don't forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, they were winning all the tournaments, and for some it could have been boring, in other countries where they're oh well, it's just the Swedish team winning over and over. But for Swedes, it was this is our game. Now we have to keep this, and now we have to start playing it. And I think it motivated everyone, kind of teenagers in Sweden, to be oh yeah, I want to get into esports now because I have my heroes to look up to. So
yeah. And heroes are important, and fundamentally, heroes are only created through success. I mean, you brought up StarCraft, and I know that guys like MVP, Nesty, These are people that have had serious success and people that have aspired to, wanting to, um, aspire to be them, and they are people at the top of the games. They pick up nicknames because of how they sort of play out. MVP, the classic incredible miracle sort of guy. Nesty, who's this the smart choice kind of person, and people aspire to them. And in games like League of Legends, Dota, we've seen it with teams that have been incredibly dominant. And the story of CS certainly has been focused around these sort of legacy teams. Last year we had what is SK, the Brazilians, which won 2 majors. Prior to that, you had the Fnatic era. We've had the NIP era, and if you go back to CS 1.6, it was exactly the same. SK, NIP, Fnatic, funnily enough, with moments for the French guys in there as well. But no, I think it is important that you do have these people. This thing I was talking about, actually, which Luke and I might have more connection in than you guys, is that another hobby that we have is sometimes there's also villains that you sort of follow, if that makes sense. And I've always been. It was about 2 years ago in CS:GO. Fnatic used an unscrupulous boost in overpass, shall we say. And the press was crazy about it, and they sort of turned them into these bad guys almost overnight. Fnatic became that Swedish team that you hated, the pureblood Swedes, all supported NIP. But, there was you were almost like a bad boy if you supported Fnatic. Volgan.
Yeah, I like that that boost, so I was cheering on for Fnatic and wanted them to be allowed to use it, because it's maybe not a beautiful ledge, but it's not. I think it was cool, and it's something it's there. Why not use it? So
I think that's absolutely fantastic. I thought it was out and out cheating. It was completely annoying.
It's such an amazing boost, and they could do so much. It's crazy. How did they even find it?
Can I ask, from someone outside of that game, what did they do exactly?
Right, so they found a trick that someone had found out, that if I stand here and you stand on top of my head, and then Volden stands on top of your head and jumps onto a pixel that happens to be out of place, that you can look down through the entirety of the map into where the other guys are coming from, and they've no idea where you are. Okay, so round 1, they're like, oh, I just got shot. I literally no idea where that shot came from. All right, okay, we need to be a bit more careful. Let's do this more stealthy this time. Oh, I got shot again. Where the fuck is this coming from? Tell you what, guys, what we'll do is we'll go the other way round. Rather than walk through here where we keep on getting shot from, we'll go the other way. But of course, I can see that you're going that way, so the rest of my team is waiting for you going the other way. It's what the fuck?
Yeah, and they won a tournament with that, or just a series?
No, basically, they didn't. It was a
semi-final.
Semi-final. It was a semi-final.
Sure, you'd say that for the final.
Well,
they were under, so they had to do something.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was.
That's crazy.
It was a story in itself. Talking about stories, one of the things that's really excited me about this major and the surprises, because, let's get something clear. The second, third best team in the world, FaZe, didn't make it through to the top 8. They got knocked out in the group stages. Because of the way that the seedings worked based on who won the most games in the Swiss part of the system, the number 1 and number 2 teams in the world met in the quarterfinals. So the final, that should have been in a lot of people's eyes, happened to come out in the quarterfinals, and one of the best teams was knocked out, and then subsequently the other good team got knocked out in the semi-final. We saw surprise results from the likes of Immortals, eventual finalists, from Gambit, eventual winners, from Big, no one had fucking heard of, making it through into the top 8. It was, my news feed for esports, my various apps and things that I follow has been inundated with stories about, oh my god, this, and it would have been great to see the world number 1 versus the world number 2 in the final, but I'm not disappointed with the fact that we had a epic final and some amazing stories and some teams that did much better than anybody predicted. And I think this is what I was talking about the major being so open. Not just the major, CSGO generally at the moment. There are so many teams that can get victories over others. And I just think that makes for some of the best journalism, the most exciting viewing, and the most incredible tournaments. Because, when you... In League of Legends, I predict that it's going to be SKT in the final of the World Championships for League of Legends. Because... They've won 4 of the last 5 international tournaments. And the only reason they didn't win the 5th is because I don't think they were invited, because it was the IEM invitation-only tournament. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I love watching them play. They are shit hot, okay, and they make other teams look really bad. But do you know what? It's kind of a bit boring. I mean, if you support like some mid-ranged or maybe even one of the better EU or NA or Chinese or CIS, Brazilian, Turkish, Australian, pick your favorite here, teams.
I think, can I come with a...
No, please, I talk way too much.
Yeah. No, I think another thing that's pretty cool, especially with Counter-Strike, is like the way that they have been able to capture these stories as well, because there are stories of like all teams, right? But in the way that Counter-Strike has this kind of, I don't know if it's like an edgy feeling, but they're like, casters are like swearing on air and like they're doing like random stuff. But in like League of Legends and I guess Dota too, it's like so structured and like so kind of the company steering everything that like when SKT is winning, they're like not robots, but they're like, you know who they are, but you don't really know much about them. But then you go into like Counter-Strike and you have like now I forget their names, but the Polish team,
Virtus Pro.
Yeah, Virtus Pro, right? And everyone is like, the stories about them, and like, Pasha Biceps, or like even in Navi, like Edward, who has been playing like, I don't know how long, like 12 years or something. And the same thing with Nip, like and you have been like, even if you haven't been following them, you can just like do a quick Google, and then there's like this epic saga that is like their life. But then if you Google like a Korean person or like Chinese person, it's like, oh, this is their real name, and that's it. That's like, okay. And or it's just like, this is their age and this is their Korean age. It's like,
I'll be honest,
okay.
if it depends on where in Korea, it might not be they can get on the internet, like outside of playing games. So.
But
to all our Far Eastern viewers out there, none of you. But
I'm just saying, it's in some areas, the internet's limited. But no, I was going to touch on something you said earlier about like when a team sort of comes in and just is completely entertaining out of nowhere. You mentioned LoL, and I used to be really, really into LoL. And I remember, I think it was season 4 when Unicorns of Love came into play. And it was Unicorns of Love and Fnatic had some absolutely insane games throughout the season. Like every time, Unicorns of Love, they were putting out off-meta picks in like the mid lanes and things like that.
It was just, in the mid lane was just
it was. I remember, like, I think it was him on Cassiopeia. Like they let his Cassiopeia slip through, and he was absolutely insane that season. And it was completely out of the blue, and it was the most entertaining games of the entire season, regardless of what happened after that. You would watch that and you had no idea what they were going to pick. Every other game, it was like, and they've picked Ari, and they've picked, it was all these completely meta picks, the same bans every game, and then they're just picking, yep, that's fine, you've banned people we don't even play. That's great.
Talk about like unusual things and off-meta picks, and almost to tie back to Gambit into the same sentence. Gambit, obviously, who used to play in the European LCS, are now taking part in the Russian version of Riot Games' tournament over there, and I think they're 12-0 at the moment in their tournament. And their mid laner has played 12 different champions in 12 different games.
Wow!
And I was just like. Yeah, it's just you nailed it. You nailed it right on form. Go on, Von.
South Korea is actually doing the same thing in Overwatch at the moment, because like the meta in Overwatch is like dive com, you jump on your opponent. But now they're going back to like have a anti-dive strategy, so they're doing something else as well. So it's really cool to like be able to see this in the World Cup that is going on. So it's like they're just trying something new. It's incredible.
meta is one of the most fascinating things, and one day we'll do one of these shows where we'll have a topic where we talk about metas, because I think
that would be awesome.
The concept of meta is such an interesting
Yeah.
thing.
I love
Even within challenger mode. So we run challenger mode 1v1 tournaments, and it's a really fascinating meta, because there's certain champions that are really strong, but then there's certain champions that do that. And if I ban this one, then it makes these viable. But then if I know that you're going to be picking these ones, then I might pick. And honestly, it's one of the most interesting stories we've seen, for League of Legends on the site. But even within the pro scene for LoL at the moment, you see certain types of AD carries have become prominent, hyper carries, and because hyper carries have become prominent, then the support picks have changed, which means that now people are countering the counter of the counter to be viable. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, I'm literally mind blown. One of my favourite champions in the game has become almost viable again because it's a counter to a counter of a counter. It's just like, and I love meta. I love meta. Anyway,
sorry, Karen.
No, I was going to say, we could sit and chat.
We'll do that. Yeah, another time. We'll do that.
But, what I was going to say is, like, just as a final note, I really have to say a massive shout out to PGL. I mean, they laid on a beautiful event.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, aside from the stories and the surprise winners, if you will, they laid on a really fantastic event. And I noticed that Reddit's been a little bit harsh because of things that were out of their control. But I think they laid on a phenomenal event, and I hope we get to revisit Poland again in the next couple of years, because I think they deserve another.
So.
Right. The next topic, it also annoyingly ties roughly into CSGO, but it's not actually the specific story I want to pick up on. It's a couple of years back, there was a team called I Buy Power that, let's say, they pre-arranged the result of a game. I think would be quite
That's the most diplomatic way of saying that.
And they're not, to be honest with you, they're not the only ones. There's been a couple of other people sort of involved in not necessarily pre-arranged games, but people necessarily using cheats and things, that over the last few months we've seen bans lifted on them. Noticeably ESL that's lifted the ban on I Buy Power. Not all of the other organisations. Because of ESL's strong affiliation with DreamHack due to their ownership, I suspect we might see it lifted for DreamHack as well, and we'll see what other events' viewpoints on that is. Now, I'm quite well known for being a bit harsh, I think it's fair to say. But I mean, one of the reasons that we have this show is to get other people's opinions, and other people's opinions that are important to me. I'm very interested to know what your sort of take is on cheats, as I call it, be it using a cheat in game to improve your performance, which, believe me, I could definitely do with in CSGO.
You're still shit, so it doesn't matter if you use cheat or not.
Just CSGO, Daniel? Just CSGO?
Just CSGO. You don't need cheats for Hearthstone. Nailed it.
Need to know the better.
But and also match fixing. In fact, I'll actually go one further, and I'll start off with my own opinion on this before we throw it out to you guys, which is this: I think cheating is crap, and I think people that use cheats are the lowest of the low. I actually think match fixing is worse, because if I use a cheat in a 5-person team, I give myself a competitive advantage. But it's still a team game. So unless we're all fucking using cheats, okay, like it's 20% advantage to my team in a 5 versus 5 game. But match fixing, I mean, is fraud. It's just bang out fucking criminal as far as I'm concerned. And particularly when betting is taken into account, and we've not just seen it within esports, we've seen it within traditional sports as well. American football, soccer, most recently the Indian crisis within cricket. And I think it is fucking criminal, because a lot of people are making a hell of a lot of money off of betting of games. And I am interested to know your thoughts. Deefa, let's start off with you, mate. I mean, I'm not saying you look like a shady bastard, but what is your take on it?
No, I kind of this is gonna sound weird, but I have like kind of some experiences with this, not personally of cheating.
Uh-huh.
He's a
But,
cheater.
Oh, confirmed.
No, but like so basically, a couple of years back, I was competitive in TF2 or Team Fortress 2, and I know it's like a dead game, so dead right now. But
it was a game. We're all aware of TF2. It's fine.
yeah. But
For those of you listening in who are under the age of 40, we're talking about Team Fortress 2.
Yeah. No, but they had a competitive scene, and there was like some sponsors in it in the beginning, like the first 4 years, and so one of my team members, like I ran a Swedish team, like, and we became kind of well known for being like really shit, but everyone liked us. So like we were that Swedish wholesome team.
Gangsters.
Yeah. No, but so I brought on this this kid, like literally a kid, that was 12, and he was so talented. And then a couple of months later, he was the first Swedish person who got banned in Team Fortress 2 because he was using wallhack. And so I was the leader of that team. So I kind of felt betrayed, because then everyone was like looking at me and being like, "Oh, so you were housing like cheaters in your clan?" I'm like, shit, I wasn't expecting this at all. And like I was of course like angry at him at first, and but after some time, like listening to like how he was talking about the event, like some year later, I was kind of wondering like how like the thing that they changed now in the ESL thing, I believe, was that it was kind of in relation to your age, like the cheating, like when you cheated, like how old were you? So this guy, like the guy in my team, was like a 12-year-old, and he actually was really talented. Like he was like every time he picked up a game, he was like top scoring in every game. He had like a one-on-one tournament, like a sniper tournament, and he got to the final with the best sniper in the world, basically. And then he turned on the wall hacks, but it's like a 1v1 game, and they had like 50 people like watching him, so it was like so stupid, right? And so he explained to me that he was like super nervous and just like was afraid, so he just googled the first hack and installed it. And when he got banned for like 2 or 3 years, I think, which I think is fair, but I think like since esports is such a kind of like you can only be like high level in esports in like a very limited amount of time in your life, I feel like when they do like these lifetime bans, it's like you just have to ban a person in 5 years, and they're not gonna be they're not gonna be in any teams. Like if you're 22 and you get a ban for 5 years, you're gonna be 27. Like what team is gonna want that 27-year-old anyways? So like doing these lifetime bans feels like to me like they're a bit too harsh.
Luke's basis, fucking hell, we're past it, man.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've sat there and cursed what's happened about 10 years too late. I've cursed that's a lot of times.
No, but you know, in general, not everyone, but so like there are these
I assume vainglory. The average age is like 18, like 7. That's 15-year-old kids playing this game 1,000 times better than me.
They're all so bloody young, I know, man. It's great. But no, look, Deeper, I entirely understand what you're saying with regards to it. And like, so I was having a conversation with someone about it over the weekend, and we were talking about so like if I don't know, if I rob a bank, I get sent to prison, okay?
Yeah.
And after, do you know, I have no idea how long you go to prison for robbing a bank. Let's say 10 years.
Yeah.
It could be less or more. I've literally no idea. But after 10 years, I get released from prison, and it's presumed that my 10 years of hard labor and, like, I don't know, if you look like me, probably not an altogether pleasant time, you know, have rehabilitated me, and when I come out of prison, that I won't be robbing banks again. And so the suggestion is if you've cheated in esports, that if you get like, I don't know, a 2-year ban, as the iBuyPower guys effectively have had, in that 2 years, hopefully they've like realized the error of their ways. My reason for being more harsh, insofar as the fact that I think it should be a lifetime ban, and I would still do, okay, is that esports is young. I mean, it's a super fickle place, okay? You know, if you tuned into last week's show, you'll have heard our opinion on how... thanks, Lumen. Love you too.
The love is real.
Yeah, love is real. But the esports is still super fickle. I mean, it's a massive growth area, but it doesn't take too many big stories to like destroy the support that it's had, particularly from like capital investment and non-endemics at the moment. And I just think you have to be careful. And I think cheating is a pile of shit. I think people that cheat is just the worst of the worst, to be honest with you. Luke, I can see you itching away, man. He's got the whole swingy chair thing on. That's
no.
I want to say something.
I'm just trying to be suave like you, and not stand there just staring at the camera. I'm trying to like look like I'm relaxed and mellow, and I'm completely comfortable.
You got to go for the CLG George stance, which is with knees up like this.
Well, I could do the vainglory player thing and just put my feet up on the table.
On the table itself. Yeah.
But no, I kind of agree with you in the sense that I think cheaters are massive dicks. You know, I think that you like you say, one of the biggest aspects is that if you cheat, it's a team that gets banned, it's an organization that gets punished for it, and that's normally in those scenarios an individual choice. So you find that an organization will get fined, or an organization will lose their place in tournaments, etc., because of one person. So it's not only the fact that you were doing something horrendous, you're doing something horrendous that's potentially dashed the dreams or careers of multiple other people, and the hard work for the organization as well, because, you know, esports is not like the 5 people playing. Esports and an organization is the 20 plus people behind that team that are getting them to that tournament and getting them where they need to be. Training wise, coaching wise, publicity wise, everything. So you're representing a team, but you're also dashing on you're shitting on everyone that's helped you up until that point. So yeah, I agree. Like when it's an individual person making that choice, that the ban hammer needs to come down. It needs to come down hard and fast, and they need to realize what the fuck they've done.
Yeah. I think the other thing is one of the things for me is that when you go super soft on somebody and you're like, you've been a bad boy, but you can come back in 12 months. Yeah, people are like, do you know what? Like,
I can play another game for 12 months. It's cool.
Maybe I'll get away with it. You know, maybe I don't get caught. Because let me assure you, okay, there's been people caught. There's way more fucking people out there who've actually fucking cheated. I take my fucking word for it. I know. Okay.
I don't know.
And it's just pretty terrible. Volden, what about you? What's your sort of take on it? You know, I mean, obviously, like me, you appreciate that, like, you know, gingers shouldn't be allowed in esports at all. But what's your take on it?
Like, I have like the different perspective on this, because I kind of want to compare a ban in esports like being in a prison in Norway. And I feel like if you have been in a prison in Norway, you have a really good time, that's okay, but like they get treated so well, so they're not, even though they've been treating so well, and like they had all this being schooled and everything and all these things, they're studying in the prisons and things like that, they just know that, it's something more about life than robbing a bank or some stealing from a store or something like that. So I feel like if they get to a year's ban, they should be able to come back and play in tournaments, because I don't think that once a cheater, always a cheater. I'm more on that side of the subject.
Let's use an example for a set example, okay? And I want to talk about Dazed, All right. So Dazed was one of the players that was implicated in the iBuyPower situation, and I think it's fair to say that he is one of the best North American players, arguably the best North American in-game leader, which is something that NA struggles like fuck for in CS:GO. All right. And despite being banned from competitive CS:GO, like he's still been streaming and playing the games. I mean, I think he's signed to Cloud9. You correct me if I'm wrong, Volden. And so he's still a major streamer for those. And I'm curious because I mean, he actually hasn't gone to prison, so to speak. I mean, he's been banned from playing competitively, but he's still playing the fucking game. You know, it's not like they've even taken his no, you can't play CS:GO anymore. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Did you ask everyone or just?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm willing to throw this out to anyone. I mean, throw in your thoughts on this one.
No, but like I think definitely, like most of the time I've felt with bans is that they're very kind of there's no gray zone or like middle zone. There's just like either you cheated or you didn't, and if you cheated, then it's like you're done for basically, or you should be. But I didn't actually know about Dazed, but I guess he did he cheat? Like, was it proven or?
He was one of the guys that match fixed, and yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think like one of the interesting aspects of it, like being like banning and cheating in esports, is that I feel like one aspect of it is that esport is trying to like take the serious spirit of regular sports, like when someone is like, I don't think you say that in English, but like doping, when you take like drugs.
Yeah, same words.
Okay, yeah, and then it's like, yeah, you'll be banned for 45 years. It's like really hardcore. Like esports is like trying to take that, but then at the same time, it doesn't have the like infrastructure that regular sports have, like when that bicycle dude like did the drugs.
Which one? Yeah.
Yeah, no, but like it's like that's an
Lance.
entire
Yeah.
like it's such a big thing that you can like base your like life on that. Like, oh, I started out as a kid and then like I went on. While as esports is just like some dude or girl are just sitting in their room and then playing something and then eventually becoming like famous, and then like I think they want to make it as a sport, like how the rules exist, but they don't have the same kind of surrounding parts of it. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm not saying that.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not saying that like cheaters shouldn't be banned. I think that they should be banned, but just like that, I feel like there's I feel like there's room to discuss like why people are banning too, and not just like, oh, they banned, fucking kill them. It's like
it's funny you pick up on that, because Twitch chat suggestions is,
Yeah.
I demand trial by combat.
Yeah.
Fly them all to an island like PUBG and make them fight off, and the guy that survives, he's allowed to play again. Or something like that.
I love the use of like PUBG, like Battle Royale didn't exist before that.
yeah, no, that's like the thing.
But I was going to say something that kind of hasn't really been touched on too much is that people kind of often forget that esports is a business. You know,
Yeah.
there's a ton of money invested across the board, and like for example, that guy you're talking about that's streaming for Cloud9 after he's been banned from competitive play. Well, Cloud9, he's an employee. You know, they would suffer as an organization for a team's decision. I suppose that their argument against it would be like, well, hang on, that was a team, it's his ban, he's not getting to do the competitive play thing, but we still have an investment in this guy, and that sort of side of things, which I know this is like the douchey perspective, but like that is the reality that we live in.
I mean, the reality is you're absolutely right with regards to it. You know, it is a business at the end of the day, and I mean, the reason that he's signed to a team and continues to stream is that he's a phenomenal player, and a person that people want to fucking watch at the end of the day. I mean, I've watched his streams, and he's is good. He's a good player, which only makes the whole like match fixing and or cheating, insert your player of choice here thing even more frustrating. I mean, we talk about. Yeah, go on.
That's right. Just something I meant to touch on as well is that you got to remember from the game's perspective, if that is someone that brings in 10,000 viewers every time they stream their game, they don't want to ban that person from streaming their game. Like, that is a ton of publicity, a ton of infamy that they're getting because that person's bringing in those fans.
But it's bad
Yeah, you
publicity
say
as
that,
well.
man, but do you know what? 10,000 people that don't watch Dazed go and watch somebody else.
Yeah.
Probably.
Potentially, but like I said, you know, the other thing is as well is like I say, again, I don't want to harp on the business side of things. There may be existing contracts and things like that to do with the game and the organization and their team and things like that that we're just not privy to. And like the first said, like they want to be sports. They really want to. Esports wants to be sports. And we want, as esports individuals, people involved with the scene, we do want to be taken seriously in the same way that managers or journalists or anyone in that area are taken seriously. Mm-hmm. But the difference is that the top players in the world will bring home a few million, $10 million. There are British soccer players, football players that bring home that every week. You know, that is the difference between sports and esports at this point in time.
At the moment,
that's what I say. At this point in time, I totally agree that it's not going to be that case in the future. But people within esports want the scene to get to that future, and there's a lot of risk in being so harsh early in a scene's creation or in a scene's progress that could stop it getting there potentially if they're, fan favorites and that are getting banned and people are coming down that harsh on organizations that are drawing a lot of fans. We're not there yet with esports. And
let me counter that.
Go for it.
Which is like, if you're not harsh now, when are you harsh? And if you say that it's acceptable for people to like match fix or cheat.
No. I didn't say it's acceptable.
All right. Sorry, let's rephrase that. If you do your 12 months time, you can come back and play again.
Yeah.
Does that not send the wrong message to like the community and the people that aspire to be gamers?
Well, the message it sends is that there are. It sends a message saying there are at least consequences. Now, those consequences may be light by your standards, and I would probably agree with you that they are relatively light for a year ban for match fixing. I think that's an extremely harsh thing. I think like if a person used, like say, the individual that Defer used, the guy that was nervous, used a wall hack, that sort of thing. Like in those circumstances, that guy got 2 years for Team Fortress, and then an organization gets a year for match fixing. That doesn't seem balanced.
It's not balanced.
I think match fixing should be a more criminal case because you're earning. You can like bet on your own match and bet like 100,000 because you're going to lose anyways. So it's more criminal.
I think there were 4 people named in the iBuy Power case, and I could be wrong. It could be more, it could be less. I'm not 100% sure. But as far as I'm concerned, I think all 4 of them should have actually gone to prison for this, because I think it's.
They do that.
I agree with you. Actually, I would agree with you. It's a criminal offence. It's fraudulent. It's fraud.
I think it's worth noting with them, at least with match fixing, because it's like one of the biggest events like things that has happened surrounding match fixing is like the entire Brood War scandal. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but like basically there was this huge StarCraft Brood War scandal about match fixing that was like, I think it was around 2004 or 5 or 6.
Yeah, I was about to say 2004, 2005.
And where it was like kind of like a huge amount of players that were involved in this, and like one of the players was like one of the so-called bourgeois, like the legends that were like, as we spoke previously about the heroes like of the games and stuff. He was one of the guys that had been like dominating so many tournaments, and then like he wanted more, and then he was one of those guys who actually went into prison for the match fixing. And like that, you were saying a bit before about this kind of like how it affects esports as a whole, and it kind of damaged esports in South Korea, like I think it was like for at least a couple of years afterwards, where it's like people were afraid to take it seriously after that. Like they were like, oh, but well, if it's so easy, then they can do it anytime, right? And
to give some idea about this implication, the conversation that he's having right now, okay, I think Blizzard Corporation lost $2.4 billion off of their valuation because of the match fixing scandal that went on with StarCraft.
oh shit! Yeah, I didn't know that.
Okay, and and the players that were involved in it, one of them had won something like 11 million yen, which is like 4.7 million dollars worth of prize pools before he was caught. I mean, it was massive, and it changed the entire landscape of Korean esports. And Korean esports is pretty legit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, the big one for me is going to be seeing what happens with China in the next 5 to 10 years. So they've just launched CSGO in China, and they've already had a massive match-fixing scandal. It's been out for 5 minutes, okay, and they've already got a bunch of people throwing games for money. And the best thing about that is that like when I saw it, this report was I mean, it was quite widely broadcast. But Richard Lewis, please go and check out his Twitch channel and his YouTube channel. Well worth a watch. But Richard Lewis reported on it, and 2 of the players in the team that threw the game betted on the result of the game themselves using their own names and accounts. They weren't even celebrating. I mean, it's just like,
they should be banned for just being stupid. For stupidity.
Sterilization at the very least, because I don't want these people having kids, you know.
Yeah, they should be banned from the game for being like that is a thing.
But
unbelievable.
Hasn't Asia like this? They actually send people to prison for cheating in video games now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but that's what happened in South Korea. Like with the match scandal, they like that top player actually went to prison for I think 1 or 2 years or something.
Yeah.
And then now after that he was let out on a parole. And then when that happened, like now a couple of years later, there was a stream that went online. There was no name for it, but people recognized his play style. So people were like, "Oh shit, he's playing!" And then it like he got so many viewers because they're like, "Oh shit, it must be him."
Yeah.
And then that stream got like instantly shut down because he's not allowed to stream StarCraft at all.
Sorry, I'll just be right back, guys. 2 seconds.
Yeah, no problem.
You guys carried on.
But
and then there's like kind of other kind of cheatings, which is like when they get desperate because like StarCraft 2 has been on the decline, right? And I don't remember his name. There was like one of the top players basically. He was like one of the ones who won tournaments for like the entirety of StarCraft 2. He was caught match fixing as well, and he was like 18 or 19, and I think he went to prison for like 1 year now. And now he actually admitted it. Like he came out and was like, "Please send help. I'm like stuck in this match fixing scam." And he went to prison, and basically he said that he did it because since StarCraft 2 was like declining in popularity, he was like losing his money and he couldn't like sustain himself. And then someone like like a drug dealer on the corner had been like, "Hey man, you want to keep earning money?" and then he was like, "Yeah man." And then he got stuck in this like loophole of like scamming, and I don't know. It was like when I heard about that, I was like, of course I wanted him to be banned, but I also like felt sorry for him. Like, oh shit, because he was a legit player for like 5 years, and then he was like, fuck it. Then when he became an adult, he just went straight to prison. It's like, Jesus, dude.
But
yeah, it's pretty rough, to be honest with you. And the thing is like within the world of gambling, people that are heavily involved in gambling, particularly like dodgy as fuck gambling. We're not just talking about the guy that goes and puts a fiver on the horses. We're talking about like serious gambling. It is a super dodgy area to be in, and you've got particularly over in the Far East, where the Far Eastern mafias are involved. There's so much money going around. I mean, this CS:GO case, they were talking about, thousands of dollars, which adds up. Particularly if you're in a game where like a strong favorite throws a game to an unknown one, because you can get some serious odds. I mean, we've gone back to the conversation we had earlier about Gambit. I think they were like 25-1 to win the major.
Yeah.
That's not bad fucking odds, to be honest with you, man. I'll take 25-1. And like when you get those sorts of things, it adds up. Anyway, look, I think we've exhausted that topic of conversation. The long and the short of it is that the general census is that cheating bad.
Yeah.
Cheating bad.
Just cheat, everyone. Cheat, everyone. Cheat. Come on, do it.
Match fixing worse. I don't know. We'll have to see. We have got a couple of interesting comments in the chat. Lumen has said that if a computer geek has to go to prison, R.I.P. asshole.
I already read that. And I was like, he's not wrong, but still.
Lumen also apparently has a question for you guys, or mostly for Mal.
Okay.
Lumen, type that one out. We'll read it in just a second. Also, a big shout out to everybody that's come to join us tonight.
Please buy that fucking cup because it looks amazing.
Show the cup.
It's just a water jug. It's
Jesus. Okay.
That looks cool.
Like a gym water jug.
I see what it is. Lumen's like, saying that cup is really, really huge. It's not. It's just Mal has a really small head.
Honestly, I'm a pygmy.
Yeah, it's
the end scene of Beetlejuice.
Which of the head is small? Both of them, or?
Oh, I see.
Giggity.
Giggity, yeah.
My uncle loves your stream and he watches it all the time. Unfortunately, his arms were mangled in a terrible mining accident. Now he can only communicate with me typing with him. Needless to say, he says hello from his hospital bed and wishes you all the best. Thanks in advance. Thanks, Uncle Joe.
Wow.
What the hell?
I don't know.
Jesus.
I don't know.
You don't know if it's a troll or legit, so you just gotta treat it legit.
Yeah.
I've got to go with legit. It was one of those messages that I thought was going to turn into a joke, though. When you start
I see what you mean, like where it's going. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Anyway, shout out to many of the viewers tonight. Thanks for supporting us this evening. It's great to see some people that backed for before and some new listeners. So thanks very much. We're going to move into the last topic now, and this is one which is actually pretty close to me in terms of work, which is next weekend and the weekend after, we're actually running the Swedish IESF qualifiers. So for those of you who don't know what IESF is, it's the International Esports Federation, and they basically organize this massive tournament which has traveled around the world. Last year it was in China. I think this year it's in Busan in Korea. And they arrange for teams representing your country. So we've got like the Swedish qualifiers where, unsurprisingly, Swedish people will be trying to represent Sweden in CS:GO, League of Legends, a football game, not FIFA, one of the other ones. I think they've got Hearthstone and some fighting game. Let's go with Street Fighter. It's probably the other one. I really don't know when it comes to fighting games. My apologies. But the reason I want to bring this up isn't so much what games or who's good or even who's going to win. It's this notion of we associate esports with teams. I mean, we've talked about Gangstars, TSM, Fnatic, Ninjas in Pajamas, Unicorns of Love, SKT, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And if you go to most of these major events these days, it is teams. Oh, PES. Is it PES? Fuck. There we go. PES.
PES. Yeah.
Football. Not FIFA, the other one. Now, what I want to know is there a place within esports for country versus country as opposed to team versus team esports? And why is it that in the couple of years that IESF has been running that it hasn't really broken into what I thought it would be when I first heard about it? Because when I first thought about it, I was like, oh, this is an amazing idea. yeah, this is an amazing idea. This is going to be huge. And a couple of years down the line, the investors in IESF have blown a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money. The Alibaba Group guys that invested in it last year lost $20 million. So, yeah, I know. I was like, really sorry, guys. Funnily enough, I can't really help you with that. Even rich boy me can't help you with that. But I mean, is there a place for country versus country esports? Volden, you've been quiet. What's your take on this one?
I've been watching the World Cup for Overwatch the last week, so I think it's a amazing concept. And why don't we have more of this? I think like competing country versus country it's like you can root for your own team, like your own country, instead of like rooting for your own team, because like put together all of these players, they're playing for each other teams, but you put them together and maybe you have a favorite player in NIP, and maybe you like a guy in TSM or Fnatic or whatever, and they're from the same country and they could be in the same team. I think it's just a awesome concept, and we should like have more of these in other games as well. World Cup in Overwatch is going on now. I'm not sure if any other games have done this earlier. Or
I mean, they've messed around with the CS:GO one. In fact, talking about cheating, I think it's Dosia, who's one of the players from Gambit, actually represented a country which wasn't his own, and
okay.
he just got banned from it on a different.
He's just like, I'm on holiday here. It counts.
Yeah. I know that.
It's like, my passport might not be Kazakhstan, but it's in my heart. So, that sort of story.
Soviet, Soviet heart or something.
Yeah, I know that in Scandinavia, in CS, we're trying to do that, because then we have the Kings of Nordic tournament, where Norway, Finland, Denmark, and Sweden is competing in this tournament against each other, and then there's not picked by a community in the country, but it's like a completely Norwegian team, completely Swedish, Finland, Denmark team that are competing against each other. I think it's pretty cool. It's not the top-notch level because it's not big enough prize money, but it's pretty cool to see.
I like how your voice kind of questioned if Finland was part of the Nordic countries.
Yeah, I
did. Like Finland?
Yeah, I didn't know if they were in the King of Nordic because I haven't seen them that much.
I mean, they're part of the Nordic, but they're not part of Scandinavia in that, like the union part of sense. But there's also
FYI match fixing scandal in the Finland versus Sweden game in King of Nordics last year as well. Just saying, that's a previous story, but let's move on. I mean, Mal, you're from England, so am I. Okay, England has a proud heritage in esports casters. But not so much in esports itself. I mean, do you think you could find yourself getting behind a UK insert game here? What's your take on like?
I think we'd have to find 5 top UK players first in every game, which is the challenge in itself. I think we've kind of made steps towards it with the whole EU versus NA, or like the kind of continental or region-based competition. I can see it getting to the stage of sort of World Cup style feel, but I think, like you say, with teams being the focus so predominantly, it's players themselves that get kind of the popularity, that the fans that kind of, like you say, we get our fan favourites, the people we want to watch, the people we want to look out for. And if they're all from different countries, it makes it kind of like, oh, it's Froggen and 3-4 other guys that we don't know. Like, it's like, oh, why are you cheering for that country? Oh, because they've got, this guy that I like, and it's like, you want to be able to send. Yeah, you want to be able to assemble a team of like top players that are going to be a top draw, that are going to give you the best and most entertaining viewing. Can
I just say, I love the fact that you picked Froggen from Denmark. Denmark being one of the highest skill set countries in the entire world, but you could only name one game.
Well, to be fair, the main reason is I haven't.
It's fucking long. It's crazy.
I know, but I've not been in the LoL scene since like season 4.
Sorry, man. I'm joking. It's just made me smile.
And to be fair, actually, the whole of Scandinavia are pretty fucking up there as far as LoL's concerned, from what I can recall.
Yeah, they're not too bad. We're not Korean yet, though.
No, but like most of the top EU players seem to come originate from there. So whatever you guys are putting in the water, it's clearly working. Unless maybe
It's all the
all these
good-looking
prisons they
Englishmen
just
that
given
move
them.
here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm sure that's it. And you, but but yeah, what I mean is that you want to assemble a team that's going to be a big draw, it's going to be entertaining, and I think that we've got to the stage now where even in smaller games, like say Vainglory, Vainglory is still a growing game. The esports scene has kind of developed a lot in the last sort of 6 months to a year, but compared to like other games, it's kind of nowhere near it yet. But there's still already been NA versus EU kind of tournaments, and like there's that NA versus EU or SEA are just going to come in or EA are going to come in and just storm everyone, and it's that kind of continental pride rather than country-based pride. And I think that's going to be a hard sort of, we touched on meta, but I think it's going to be a hard meta to break for esports as a whole, because like when I play on the EU server for a game, as far as anyone's concerned, I don't care if I'm from the UK or France or wherever. I'm European. Like if I talk to an NA player, they'd be like, yeah, so you're on EU. They're not like, oh, so you're British. They don't give a crap where I'm from. They're just,
It's because most Americans think that England's part of America. Anyway,
in fact, it started the other way around.
Yeah, indeed. Now, I'm going to ask you, Tifa, because the reality is that you've got 2 Englishmen and a Norwegian here. Okay, so like none of us have any teams that we can possibly be proud of.
Wow.
Now, you're Swedish. Sweden actually has a chance to do well in esports. How do you feel about it? Like, do you think that something like this could be good for it?
I think it's a good idea, and but I think also that the way that people are more centralized towards teams than their countries is kind of like reflective on esports being like a modern version of sports, where like you can connect just basically way easier with people now, like, and you can have teams like I think FaZe who are like strictly European because they have like one player from each country, and so I think like I really like the idea of having the Overwatch World Cup, because I love getting behind and like rooting for teams like Japan, like, or Thailand at least. Like Thailand is so funny because they were like in the first World Cup of Overwatch, they were like laughing when they were losing and like getting really hyped because they were just like, we're on camera, yay! And it's like they were so happy about it. So it like gave like a lot of players a chance to just like be seen, like, or a country to be seen, and like for people to connect. But I don't think that it's gonna have like the same kind of status as a World Cup in football, where it's like, this is what our country needs to win, or like North Korea like sending people back to the mines because they lost a football game, like that kind of shit. Like I think basically that it's something that
Just to note to anyone watching in, we strongly suspect that North Korea doesn't have a top-level Overwatch team. No internet there. But carry on.
I would have loved to see North Korea and esports.
No, I didn't say it doesn't have internet. It has limited internet.
No, but, I think like it works as a really good gimmick, and the thing that as a tournament gimmick, that is like, and I think that Blizzard is doing a really good job at it because they have such a like power behind their name. IESF, they have like, even their name for me is like difficult to pronounce in English. Like they're not like so strong in terms of their name. So when there's like, oh, did you know the IESF is like hosting a tournament? It's like, who? Like, yeah, man.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Let me tear away your theory for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. CS:GO really struggle to get like world teams running together. League of Legends, it's all about the teams. We probably couldn't break it down into the nations right now. And this is because these games have tenure. They've been around for over a certain period of time. My reason for the Overwatch World Cup being so successful is there is no Overwatch scene. People are playing this Overwatch World Cup because there's literally fuck all else they can play in right now. Is that the only reason it's been successful? Just throwing that one out there. I should throw this one to Volden actually, because he's the big Overwatch fanboy.
What do you mean? Like, yeah, I can agree that like Overwatch doesn't have this big scene, but like Blizzard. Hello, Blizzard, if you're watching this, like, make us do our own tournaments. We want to do more than just what you guys are not doing. So I think that's the biggest problem with Overwatch. I think we can have like a World Cup because we started with it so early, but please allow us to have our own tournaments as well, because we can do both. But you fix the World Cup, we can fix everything else on our own. It will make so much better.
Mal, you picked up on business earlier, so let's
Yeah.
pick up on business for a second, okay? So I own a team, okay? We're going to call it Dan Stars, okay?
Cool.
All right.
Yep.
And
Totally
I've got
unique and
the
original. Go for it.
yeah, I've got the best laser shoot team in the world. New game, you haven't heard of it,
Yeah.
but it's going to be massive, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're signed to my organization, and they're one of the best in the world. 2 of them are from Sweden, 2 of them are from Denmark, and one of them's from the UK. Fuck it, there has to be one from the UK.
Oh
player.
no.
The only time a UK player.
Yeah, laser shoot, the well-known popular esport game.
Yeah.
Now, here's the scene, okay? Like, I pay my players; they're part of my team, and I run a business, okay? Now, I'm in a really awkward position if those guys turn to me and they're like, "Hey, we want to go and represent Denmark, Sweden, and the UK for this in the World Cup." Suddenly, I'm losing revenue. I'm losing out on this because they want to go and do this, for not for my team, but for their country. Do you think that has an issue?
I mean, there's 2 sides to look at that, like connotations wise. I mean, well, first of all, if you're an organizer and you keep your players from playing for their country, they don't have to put out a tweet going, "Sorry guys, I can't play. The organization's keep back," to without actually bad mouthing the organization, give them a bad rep and get them shit with the public and their fans. But if they're contractually obligated, they can't do that. Then there's 2 kind of other ways to look at it. One is that for a lot of developers, if they're organizing a massive tournament like this, they'd probably kind of give that organization some money and pay to allow their players to play in their tournament under a different guise, or they would probably go like, right, okay, the next big tournament we host, your team's going to be one of the automatic people in it because you are one of the biggest teams and you have got one of the things. So in the Challenger Series or whatever, you're going to be there as competing straight away. You don't have to pay for your spot, or you don't. There would be business transactions involved around that. But the other way to look at it is that if one of your players for your team is representing their country and they do amazing in that tournament, people are going to want to see more of that player. Which is going to actually make you as an organization look great. So there is the kind of positive element to that as well, potentially. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And for a lot of organizations, it can depend on the management style and probably what's been contractually agreed with the player prior to that sort of thing coming around. I mean, if you were an organizer or an organization trying to put together a team right now in Overwatch, you'd probably have some sort of contractual element regarding the idea of playing for your country in a World Cup scenario. And what that entails. Like you'd bring that in. For a lot of other games, that isn't in place because it doesn't exist. There isn't a World Cup scene.
Yeah. No, sure.
But I think just to touch on something briefly that you guys kind of mentioned earlier about I think the first said in sports people focus on teams as well, but internationally, international football is huge. There's World Cups, there's European Cups. That is a huge thing. But the thing to think about is for using football or soccer, depending on where you are based, as an example, Romans friggin' played that. I think I don't know my history, but that sport has been around. I know that there's pictures from 1912 of people kicking it around. So there was not someone sat there. There's not a picture from the First World War of someone posing in front of a tank while playing League of Legends. It's just this is such a young field, as far as sports or anything in competitive nature is concerned, by any standards. Everyone thinks, it's been around 10 years, 20 years, because it's based around technology, and technology moves so fast. They think that, that's tons of time. But the reality is that if you compare it to a sport, then that's nothing. Lacrosse in America has huge followings, and people get scholarships based on their playing lacrosse for their colleges and things like that. didn't visit my local lacrosse team recently in the UK over here. Hasn't been a thing for me.
Sorry, it's super bizarre to pick up on, and you might not be aware of this, but I used to play for the UK national lacrosse team.
What?
See, they don't even
What?
hire good players.
It gets even better. It gets even better, which is this: we actually went on tour to America, not to play the American national team because they were way better than us. We went and played a couple of the college teams. Fucking hell! Even their college teams are shit hot. There. We played against Duke. Not Notre Dame as they call it there, or Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Duke, Notre Dame. I can't remember where the other one was off the top of my head, but we lost 31 and 42 in all of these games.
Yeah.
Just early games. I forgot you're in the right neck of the woods for good lacrosse teams. Actually,
well, I'm going to go away and look that up straight away. But I was going to say another good comparison. I do called Battle of the Nations, which is like basically medieval combat. I fought in armor and stuff, and I travelled to France to compete against representing Britain against other countries, and the Russian team are all like 6'8" and are paid. They're paid. They are professional at this. They are given funding to train and be epic. And everyone, like the UK team, are like, I've got to book some time off work so I can go to training at the weekend in Nottingham. You know, it's like the equivalent of like, I suppose, like, you know, like a five-a-side team trying to go against, you know, Juventus or something crazy. I don't know, but yeah, like that's similar scenario to yourself, and I think that's the case as well. Is that the other thing that we didn't kind of talk about is the fact that the popularity of games differs so dramatically from country to country. Yeah. We take regions as a whole because as a whole, a region may prove popular in a game, but individual countries, their player base will significantly change. I mean, compare the amount of people playing in the UK versus the amount of people playing in China to any game ever. You know, the amount of people they've got to select like player base wise and the level of players they've got to choose a team from would, like we talked one of the first things we touched on today was like, is it great to see when people get stomped and not? That's literally what that would be. World Cup would literally be like in League of Legends. It would be like, right, we've got the United States of America, South Korea, and China. You know, or we've got Korea and China. You know, done. That's it. It's like there would be no other countries. And no one would care about the other countries. And even though, like you say, you might get the Unicorns and Love team.
I think Denmark. I was
going to say, and then you might. That's what I mean. You might get the Unicorns of Love team. It'll be like Denmark, you know. But this is what I mean. Like, there's no point putting a World Cup out there with 15 people competing when like 90% of people are going to walk in going, "I'll catch this stream in 3 weeks' time when it's got down to the last 4, which are going to be these 4." You know, it's and that's just the case. I think that's why basing it around regions is such a more popular concept, because it allows so much more diversity from different countries to and give them a bit more of a shot to actually represent, you know, a region rather than a specific country, just because you're not going to get that high level of play.
No, I think you're right. Right, guys, I think we pretty much reached the conclusion of everything going on here. Now, something else which is really important to me is this. You've given me a whole heap of time tonight, giving me your opinions, but we're also here to help out you. So, Deefer, what are you up to over the next week? Tell the people tuning in what you're up to over the next few weeks so that they might be able to follow you or catch up with you on what you're up to.
Sure. So I run my own stream called Comedeffer, which is just my name plus KOME before it. And I stream mostly Nintendo Switch games. I'm currently trying to build a community around the fighting game ARMS, which looks very like a casual game, but it has a lot of competitive spirit behind it. And I also do my own talk show about ARMS called Fellows in ARMS. Very, very clever name there. So I'm going to do more of that, and I'll be hosting my tournaments on there in the near future, like doing invitationals and stuff like that. Other than that, I'm just playing like indie games and stuff. Hopefully playing some shooters as well soon enough if I get a better computer. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna be up to. So if you're interested in that, you should head over to my channel and follow.
I've just written down the name in the Twitch chat, guys. Go and give them a follow. And if you're into like fighting games and communities and more podcasts, go and give that a follow. Go and give it a watch. Ginger Volden, what are you up to over the next week aside from working for me?
Besides being your slave, I'm actually going to Norway Cup, and I'm going to cast the Norway Cup Overwatch finals with Hansment, who is not here today. So that will be really cool.
That's going to be good. Hansel's going to come back from his holiday. One of our usual regulars has gone away on holiday. We say holiday. His girlfriend has
forced him.
What did you think? They're walking all the way across Norway.
Yeah, like
that sounds kind of fun.
No, it's outside. What you're going to do outside? You have like the internet.
On, fine.
Man,
yeah.
I tried out real life. Okay, graphics were great, but gameplay sucked.
Yeah, I agree. So.
But no, awesome. Well, we'll look forward to those. Guys, you're already on this channel. If you're not following the channel already, go and give it a follow. And you can follow Volden on @WarVolden on Twitter. Keep in touch with him. Mal, Luke, what about you? What's on the cards for you over the next week? Hold on. When you're not saving people's virginities, what are you going to be up to over the next week or two?
I love this chat. Well, I'll be streaming at some point. I'm kind of chaotic over the weekend, but I will be streaming. I stream Vainglory, Heroes of the Storm, occasionally Hearthstone, and I listen to a lot of rock music and metal, and I talk a lot of shit, and that's basically my stream all the time. And I post a lot on Twitter. So feel free to check out my my stream and my Twitch page, and it's got links to my Twitter, so you can follow me on there, and you can inquire about my bottle and being a savior of virgins on there, which is great.
Indeed. I've just written down Maleficarum. You can go and follow him.
To be fair, he's been copy and pasting that the whole time. He didn't write that. It's a copy paste. He doesn't.
Yeah, that's definitely a copy paste. Believe me. Yeah. Do you know what? There's no fucking way I would be able to spell it right. At the start of the night, I was like, it's Mal 3 for
Yeah.
This is, by the way, I'm going to hold this up because Kate has been asking, Calamity Kate has been asking about which cup because she always misses it. It's this. It's just, it's a frigging water jug. That's all it is. But it's
photograph it and Google it.
But Lumen is in love with it apparently. So yeah.
Where did you get it from?
That's all good.
To be fair, I got given this for free, but you can, like, if you just type in water jug, like gym water jug, it will come up, or like a style of it. If you type in red one, I'm sure it will come up with one very similar. So there you go.
Daniel, what are you up to then?
What am I up to over the next week? In the words of Rihanna, work, 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 work.
Those were the only words from Rihanna in that song, as far as I'm aware.
I think so. I think I'm going to be trying to cast a bit of League of Legends later on in the week. Other than that, you can catch me on the wonderful challengermode.com. When you've got a problem, it will be me trying to fix it, or one of my other incredible members of staff. Shout out to those amazing members of staff, as at least one of them is in Twitch chat, and the other one's sat being very red-haired with me. Guys, thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much. I think we've had some really great conversations tonight. It's been absolutely amazing. Defer, Mal, Volden, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Guys and girls, we're going to try and do these podcasts roughly every week or two, where we'll be picking up on topics within esports. I mean, the reality is that we try and pick up on things that are current, but rather than talk about the story itself, try and get into the sort of the nitty gritty and the meaning behind it. So if that's something that you might be interested in, feel free to tune in again, and we'd look forward to seeing you. In the meantime, I have been the beautiful Challenger Mode Daniel, joined by the amazing Mal, Defer, and Warvolden. You guys have yourself a fantastic week, and we'll catch up with you next time. See you later.
See ya.
Peace.